All right, hello everyone. Thank you for coming early in the morning. I know there's a lot of happy hours, and I'm sure lots of people, but great to have you here. I'm just introducing Katie and Donna. I'll let them talk about their session here in a minute, but thank you for coming, and I'll be running around doing Q&A later. So if you need the mic, just raise your hand. I'll come run into you. Otherwise, over to you guys.
Thank you, Alec. Thank you so much, everyone, for being with us bright and early. I always think the morning after happy hour is not so happy, but all of you look happy, so thank you for joining us. I'm Donna. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Oomnitza, and today I'm joined by Katie Du, who is the Manager of IT Platforms at Snap, and we're going to have a little chat for you. So, Katie, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
What I'd love to do, start us off, is tell us a little bit about Snap.
So Snap, for folks who might not recognize the name, that's our parent name. So we developed the app Snapchat and the recently launched AR spectacles. We have our Gen 4 that just came out. So we're an app company and an AR company.
Ahead of all the curves.
Mm-hmm. If you haven't seen the spectacles, you should check them out.
Check them out.
Light years ahead of some of the other ones you might see on the market.
So tell me, Katie, in your role, what are you personally responsible for?
Yeah, so I am an IT manager at Snap. I manage our client endpoint team, so all the computers that we have deployed to all of our employees and all of our ITAM functions. So that includes procurement, budgeting, software, imaging, and the whole asset lifecycle.
Basically everything under the sun.
Yeah, if you touch a computer, I'm probably involved with it for some reason.
And so how long have you been an Oomnitza customer?
So that one's kind of like a weird story for us. We actually were really early Oomnitza customers. So when I started at Snap 8 years ago, which is crazy, I'm like a grandparent basically in the tech world for being somewhere that long. We were using Oomnitza, so that was back in 2017, 2018. We did have a couple limitations. There were technical limitations. So we were briefly, sorry, I'm like, what was the question again? We were briefly customers back then, but we actually just started using Oomnitza again, which was great. It was kind of a return to a great product that I liked at the time. And we just did our asset implementation and launched that back in September. So I think we've been new customers for about a year.
So tell me, what were some of the things that caused you to think about needing an asset management system and then ultimately picking Oomnitza?
Yeah, so kind of as I alluded to, we had a different solution. One of our internal engineers was like, I'll build you the solution that you need. And so he did a lot of customization to an open source software called Snipe IT. We called it Trapper Keeper, which if you are a fan of the 90s, that was kind of the vibe. And it worked pretty well, for a few years, but then we started running into data accuracy issues. We had some syncing issues with our data sources. We also had some limitations on some of the sync that we could do from Google Workspace or what we use to manage our Linux systems. And the data was just bad. People were getting really frustrated with it. And so I just started campaigning internally. It was like, Oomnitza, we need Oomnitza. Because I was familiar with it. I think we may have evaluated a couple other options, but Oomnitza was the ultimate choice.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we run into a lot of companies where in-house IT or in-house developers like to build their own solutions versus focusing on their external market, so it's interesting.
Right, and in this case, this developer was really energized and excited about building something new, but then he didn't want to maintain it. And then he left and his team didn't know the code, just maintaining it was really challenging.
Yeah. So ultimately, as you thought about solutions in the market, what were some of the things that made you say Oomnitza is definitely the right platform for Snap?
I think it was the ability to customize quite a bit and all the different integrations we needed. I think we bought 20 integrations when we did our initial purchase. So we were we're going to integrate with Jamf and with our other MD. We have 2 other MDMs with Google and with Jira and with Slack. So being able to do that was really exciting. And I think just the usability was what we needed. In our old platform, I had to do a full data export of everything and then filter in a Google Sheet. But in Oomnitza, I could filter everything that I need right in the UI, and it's it's amazing. Like I nerd out about it all the time with my team, and they're like, Katie, it's just data. And I'm like, but it's beautiful. So that was like a huge selling point.
It's just data. Oh, I love it. You are a woman after my own heart. So tell me, you talked a little bit about how you have recently done an implementation of the asset module. Tell me some of the things that you've learned, or tell all of us some of the things that you've learned.
Yeah, so, well, our implementation actually wasn't super straightforward, and that's at no fault to Oomnitza or, well, maybe, I won't get into that. So we had started doing our implementation, and our company actually went through a reduction in force, and the lead who was running the project for our ITM team, he was someone who was impacted. So I wasn't managing asset management at the time, and then we kind of restructured, and I took on that team as well and kind of had to jump in to the project while the train is already in motion. So we had to get new resourcing assigned to the project. That was kind of where the challenge came from. We had planned to implement it by the end of Q2 this year, and that just wasn't realistic. So I think the learning was like, assess the situation, understand, we don't need to rush to hit a deadline. And Oomnitza was actually very flexible with us. They were like, it's normally 16 weeks of implementation, but we're here to make sure that this gets done right. So we finished and launched our implementation in September. Behind schedule, but it was still the right thing for us.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important thing that we can always do with our customers is make sure that things happen and we move with that flow. So I'm glad that happened with you. One of the things we always try to talk to our customers about is what is the value that the solution provides to you and Snap. So can you tell us a little bit about that value?
Yeah, I think quantifying the value with metrics, we're not quite there yet. Like, it's still very new, but if I'm talking anecdotally, I think, people were really frustrated with the old platform. Like, I would hear it constantly, and you could just tell from people's energy when they're talking about it or using it. They just get frustrated. So I think the value has, of launching this new platform, people are really excited about it. And they also understand that, we wanted to do this to make everyone's lives easier. The other value is with how we went about it, and I mentioned integrating with Jira. That was a big thing for us because our team currently has to go, they go into Jira, they would go in the old platform, they would have to go into Jamf to unmanage something. So the fewer clicks that we could have them do was gonna make their lives easier, make the data more accurate, make the experience for our customers. When we use customers, we talk about customers of IT internally, make their experience better. So I think the value there has been huge. And for me, as the asset manager, I have a bunch of stuff that I have to do for our finance team. And when I would do our quarterly disposals for accounting, it would take me the whole week. I just did it this quarter, and I did it in an afternoon. So it gives me time back, which is great.
That's awesome. I think that huge time savings is so important for any company, right? There's always so many things to do and not enough time to do it.
Especially if you're under-resourced, which I know is a common stressor that a lot of us have.
Yeah, I think that is a common stressor. I talked to so many people yesterday, and it was a common refrain of just a really small IT team managing thousands and thousands of assets everywhere that are moving all the time. So, you mentioned something about getting that data and keeping that data accurate. One of the things we talked about is how does Oomnitza improve your data to the point where you actually trust it to then be able to automate the things you need to do? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the core of all of it. Because if you can have all this data, but if it's not good or you don't trust, what's the point of it? So during our implementation, we actually spent a lot of time making sure that we were building a good data set moving into Oomnitza. We did a lot of data hygiene. We started with trusted sources. So I think because we took the time and did the work to start from a really trusted state, and then we've been doing training with our team and making sure they understand the why behind, making sure you check something out to someone and all of that. Maintaining the data as well has been more effective. The other part was why that's important.
Yeah, well, how do you trust it? Why do you trust it?
Yeah, I think part of it is also evangelizing to people that we did all this work, we trust it. If you trust us, please trust the data.
Yeah, I think that's an important aspect of change management, right? It's how do you make sure that everyone out there is aware and using the systems as well. Can you tell us a little bit about how you did that?
How we went about
The change management pieces, like telling people.
Yeah, it kind of depended on who the audience was. So like our security team, they have a lot of dependencies on the data that's in Oomnitza. So it took a lot of like sitting down with them and explaining what we were doing, because they're like, well, how's the data going to be trusted? I was like, well, why do you trust the current data? I told you not to trust the current data. It's bad. So we went through and we're like, here's what we're doing. You know, we're starting with all of the data coming in from our MDMs, because we know that those are deployed devices. We trust those. And then we went to all of our vendors and got reports of all of our purchases. Those were other trusted sources. So we went through like really intentionally and explained kind of like each layer of the data that we were bringing in. And that built a lot of trust. And then they actually, our security team, they kind of got to see the validity of that when they migrated some of their data. They're like, oh, well, we see a 3% increase in accuracy, which might be small, like 3%, you know, but for access decisions, like 3% is big. Like that could affect a lot of people if the data is not right.
That was your security team.
Yeah.
Seeing that improvement.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think security teams are such an important stakeholder in these types of projects. It sounds like you had a great relationship with them. Did you bring them in early in the implementation? Is that what you did with them?
I don't know if I would characterize our relationship as great.
Like many people in the room, probably.
You know, it's a love-hate relationship, I think, between IT and InfoSec departments sometimes. But we did get them involved really early on because they needed to review kind of the way that we were doing the implementation. And then they kind of realized, wait, we need to be more involved because like we're big stakeholders of like the actual downstream data that's coming through. So once they kind of had that light bulb, even though, you know, we were turning the light on and off for them, so they were paying attention. Once they figured that out, they got really involved, and you know, we were able to have even more productive conversations.
Well, and hopefully 3% improvement for security teams is a big win.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
So congratulations on that.
Thanks.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the workflows. Oomnitza has this automation platform that allows you to improve your workflows, and I'd love to hear more about some specific workflows that you have automated with Oomnitza and how you went about that. Can you tell us?
We have so many workflows. Like, I'm always worried when I have a question about something and I go and ask, they're like, you guys have like 100 in here. So we've been really, really loving the like low code, no code workflow builder. That's also one of the reasons that we liked Oomnitza. Some of the workflows that we have, one in progress we're working on is the device attestation workflow, so that people can tell us if they look at the assigned assets they have, generate a ticket like this is wrong, or like I'm missing something, or I have too much, you know, something like that, so they can tell us and we can go and investigate it. One of the other workflows that is on the more simple side is like a loaner workflow. That was something that we weren't really doing well. Our Tech Lounge team, sorry, that's our internal team name for like our help desk. They would issue out a loaner, and you know, they're concerned with closing tickets and ticket age. So the loaner would get issued, the ticket would get closed, and then someone would just basically have a loaner forever. So this workflow, when you check out a loaner, you have to set a loaner return date, and then we have these automated reminders of your loaner is due this date, or it's due tomorrow, or your loaner is overdue. So
the system is sending it all out without somebody remembering to do it.
yes, exactly.
Yeah, at the end of their day.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. And you see that, has that improved the loaner process where things are coming back and you have this visibility of everything?
I can't say with absolute certainty, just because we've only been using this in our like production fashion for about a month, but I haven't heard any bad feedback on it. So I think it's been helping. So
no news is good news. I'll take it.
Exactly.
Well, how do you see the role of asset management changing at Snap? What do you see in your future?
Well, I think asset management is often a place in IT that I feel has been undervalued. So like as I've grown and become a manager and other leadership positions, like I've really advocated a lot for people to pay attention to it, because it's important. If you don't know where your assets are, who has it, like that can put you at risk, like put the company at risk. It can result in unnecessary spending, overspending, things like that. So I think additional focus on that. Like people are starting to get it and understand that like I'm not just standing in a corner like yelling at everyone for no reason. There's intention behind it and everyone is responsible for it. So I see it really evolving where people understand like it's not just that team of the ITAM folks who are responsible for everything, like it's part of everyone's job. And also kind of bringing the value that we have from this data to other teams in the company, like our finance team and our security team and our legal team and things like that.
Yeah, I also always think about companies like Snap and how fast you're growing and the explosion in the number of assets you're managing and continually adding to that fleet.
Yeah, it's a lot. We did go through hyper growth for a few years. We're kind of flat now, but when you go through hyper growth and you have different refresh cycles, like next year we actually have an asset like cliff where we're going to have to replace like over 2,000 assets. So having a tool like this where we can actually see this and not be completely shocked and unprepared is important and very helpful.
That's right. So if Oomnitza went away tomorrow and you no longer had it to do that, refresh those cliffs, manage all of that, what would it mean to you?
I mean, I feel like I would just put my computer down and walk out. Like, what has all the work been for? No, I honestly, I don't know what I would do. And that might sound dramatic, and I know I'm here as a customer, but like we did put so much work into it. We have so much faith in the product that like if it went away, I would be devastated.
Well, that's not devastating. Let's make sure that doesn't happen. Well, then for other IT leaders here and Jamf users in the audience, can you give us some advice around implementing an IT asset management solution like Oomnitza? What's some advice you can give everyone from your own learnings?
Sure. Yeah, I think like one of the biggest things, and I kind of touched on it, was, don't rush just to hit a deadline. Like don't force yourself to try to do something insane if you can't. Like be reasonable and kind of adjust your goals if you need to. And then the other aspect of that is don't wait for perfect. Like it's never going to be perfect before you do like a production migration. So at a certain point, you need to be like, okay, I trust this to this degree, and like we have a plan of how we're going to approach things, if there are escalations later. So that's my main advice is like it's never going to be perfect. You kind of have to do it and just have your plan on how to address issues.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's always, perfect is the enemy of, good enough. Let's run with it. Let's test it. Let's move and execute. That's great advice. What about, as part of that advice, any advice on bringing management along to that journey for getting an IT asset management solution?
I don't know. I just have no concerns about harping on the same thing until, like yapping like a little dog until people listen to me on certain things. Or, sometimes you have to reframe how you're approaching with a certain leader and be like, okay, this is a problem. We had this security risk or this incident that happened because this data is bad. Or we waste, X amount of money searching for this kind of information every day, and this is the value it gets. So I think you kind of just have to know the key players on your team and like what is the thing that like motivates or drives them and approach it that way.
That's great advice. Yeah, really understanding who they are and their pain points. Yeah. So let's think about Snap. We just had the implementation. You're rolling it out. What are some of the things you're looking forward to in 2024 implementing further?
Yeah, so we're working on our software implementation. If you're not familiar, Oomnitza does manage software, which is exciting for us because I personally used to audit our Adobe licenses like back in the day, and it's amazing that like we're going to have a lot of that automated. So our software implementation is big. We're also doing our accessory implementation, which will be really helpful. There's a mobile app so you can do your audits from your phone. We have people not in IT who are maintaining accessories, so we're excited to get them like a more streamlined way to do that. And then I think overall, we're just looking forward to continuing to improve the data that we have in there and using that data really to answer questions and to like make points. Like that's been coming up a lot. Like I'll have someone ask me, I'm like, let me run a quick report. And then I can show them what I'm talking about, and it's been really helpful.
That's awesome. If you think about 2025, even longer term, how do you see Oomnitza contributing to Snap's broader business strategy and operational excellence goals?
Yeah, so there's a couple aspects of that. I think, so with the release of our AR spectacles, our team is helping with some of the management of like the prototypes and some internal demo devices. So that's part of our business goal. You know, that's a big swing into this new technology. So we're directly contributing to that with that team. And I think the other aspect of like business goals is spending, you know, cost per employee for things. And I don't think our finance team has the best sense of like actual cost per employee or per job role. So we should be able to generate that. Like once we've got the software stuff figured out, and we can look at, you know, who's spending per department on what software, in addition to all the laptops that were purchased for that department. We can give them that really rich data so that they can make more informed decisions on hiring, or, you know, take a stance on not letting people add new software that is redundant and things like that. So I think it's really going to help with paying attention to cost.
Yeah, I think that's such a top priority for so many companies, cutting the costs and understanding their costs at the employee level with that physical asset and that non-physical software asset. I know we have a customer advisory board coming up on Thursday tomorrow. There'll be interesting topics of even more dashboards and reporting.
I want all the dashboards.
All the
if there's
dashboards.
Data we can report, I want a dashboard for it.
And next gen of a voice to speak those dashboards with AI.
Yes.
Coming soon. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing all of those perspectives on point. What we'd love to do to the whole audience is open it up to questions.
And I'll do my best to answer them.
So who's going to? Oh, there's a microphone coming. Yep. Yes. And unfortunately, everyone, there's like these giant lights shining at us, so we can really not see anything.
Yeah.
Very good. Jeremy Berger with Berger Consulting. Can you speak a bit about any challenges you had around BYOD and how that might affect your data quality, ingestion, and what other shadow IT that might also bring along with it, and how you combated that?
Yeah, so that was actually kind of the consideration that we had when we were initially using Oomnitza back in 2018. We didn't want to bring our BYOD devices in, and I think at the time we could only have one integration per MDM. That's not the case anymore, so you can configure as many as you need. But yes, we didn't want to bring our BYOD devices in because A, we didn't want to pay the licensing for people's personal devices in our system, but you know, I think there's also the risk of that getting somehow mixed up or messy, and we just, there was like not necessarily like a liability, but just a data accuracy. We didn't want the BYOD devices in there. So that is the stance that we took with our latest implementation. We don't have our BYOD being brought in currently, but that could potentially change because, you know, mobile devices are being used more and more. Our security team is investing heavily in device trust, and some of that you need to have a trusted device. So that's something we may revisit, but right now all the BYOD is just living in a separate place in our MDM.
And in the shadow IT, the software, unrecognized software spend?
Yeah, that one, I think, well, that probably will be an issue for a while, but one of the nice things about the SaaS software implementation is we actually have an integration with Okta, so we can see, that sounds creepy, we capture information about Okta authentication sessions, so we can kind of capture all the software that's being used if it's in Okta. If it's shadow IT that's not Okta, our security team is actually working on a solution for that, where they're looking at SaaS software that's not approved. And then we're going to kind of combine our databases and look at, you know, this is what IT has, these are other teams are managing, and like this is not approved at all. So not 100% Oomnitza solving the shadow IT thing, but that is something our company is looking at.
Yeah. Great question.
Hey, so devices that get lost, missing, I'm assuming you send a device lock to those devices. Do you eventually unmanage them so, you know, they don't come up on those security reports as vulnerable software or anything like that?
Yeah, we actually changed the way that we did this recently. So we would just send a lock to the device, and then somehow people were getting past that firmware lock, and they would end up re-enrolling in our MDM, over and over and over and over. And what we actually just decided to do now is we will send a wipe to the devices, and we assign to a different MDM in Apple Business Manager. And it's basically one where if you don't have valid credentials, you can't set up the device. So that was a recent change that we made for that exact reason.
Cool. So then do you unmanage that object in Jamf?
Well, once it's wiped, it should report itself as unmanaged. But after, I think, like 90 days, we'll go in, and if we see those just sitting, I think we end up deleting them.
Cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a question here. Do you have a question up here? Yeah. Oh, who's going to bring the mic so people can hear? Thanks.
Okay, this is more for you. Does Oomnitza ever work with education?
Yeah, so
Yes, okay.
yeah, education is a really big industry for asset management and Oomnitza customers. And the reason being is oftentimes in education, you see obviously a ton of assets that are distributed across your students, your faculty, your own colleagues, your employees, and the IT teams are usually very small and understaffed. And that's where Oomnitza shines because, one, we give you all that data visibility in a data technology database, but then we give you the automation layer that Katie was talking about, the ability to automate all of these processes that take up team time are now able to be automated away because you have a technology database solution. And Katie, can you talk a little bit about those workflows a little bit?
Like, what's a good example?
Yeah,
There's
onboarding.
a bunch of different, I mean, there's some things
Offboarding.
that are super simple that I think people even overlook. Like, there's things that you can do as far as data normalization. So if a device comes in as just iPhone and the manufacturer's missing, like, you can have it normalize and bring that in as Apple as a manufacturer. Or you can make it so if something is Dell and Dell Inc. and Dell Incorporated or Dell Laptop, things like that, you can normalize that so that you have consistent manufacturers, vendors, like all of that stuff, which I feel like a lot of people don't care about, but like drives me crazy if I'm trying to do like a unique type of lookup. I'm like, why is Dell in here 80 times? So simple things like that are really easy to fix and automate.
Yeah,
Cool, thank you.
absolutely. Would love to chat more about that.
You mentioned about integrations with other platforms such as Jira. The question is around where the data actually exists. Is it in Oomnitza, or is the integration pulling it in from other sources so that you have a single pane of glass? I'm specifically thinking of Jira, which we have, and we use the Jira Assets module and experience the same thing with Dell Incorporated, and so on that you mentioned. Does it all pull into one place, and does it reside in Oomnitza, and what challenges did you have with multiple sources?
Yeah, so the data lives all in Oomnitza, and the integration with Jira is a plugin. So the way that it works, or at least how we have it configured, and we're Jira Data Center, we're not Jira Cloud, so we're like old school and kind of limited. But the plugin, basically the reporter on the ticket, it will look them up and then just populate all of the assets assigned to them. So you can look at that list, and then you can change the status of that asset in the ticket, and it'll update in Oomnitza. So if someone's returning their computer, you can mark it as returned, and that will pass through to Oomnitza correctly. And you can assign out a new asset from Jira directly if you have, the serial or asset tag, whatever your unique identifier is.
And then the second question, kind of related. Oomnitza, you mentioned, manages software. Licensing, does it do that as well? I know that's a question really for you, but one of the challenges that many of us here probably experience is from an identity management point of view is being able to track which license is associated with which team member, which employee. Have you used any of that part of Oomnitza at Snap? And if so, how did it go?
Yeah, we're still in that implementation right now. So Oomnitza, you can manage SaaS software and desktop software. The SaaS software, I think, is a little bit easier because you set up direct integrations with each of the software. So, for example, like Adobe or Asana, those are commonly used ones at our company. And how we manage that is you pretty much just need the unique identifier, like the email address, and that associates the software with the person. But like I said, we're still doing the implementation, so there's some workflows we haven't built yet, and like dashboards about like inactivity. That's where that integration with Okta is helpful because you can see like the user auth and then kind of associate activity with that user, and then we can use that to automate removing licenses.
How many applications are you looking at having to manage approximately?
Well, I think we probably have like 300 Okta apps, but as far as software that we in IT pay for and administer, I think the list that we had was about 10 that we were trying to do with Oomnitza. It might be probably closer to 20 if we can figure out how to get some of those integrated. Some of them are like more niche or they're like really new to the market, so understandably they're not set up with Oomnitza yet.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Additional questions for Katie? And again, remember, we can't see you. So. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll be at our Oomnitza booth shortly, so if anyone has any one-to-one questions, we're happy to talk. And thank you for stopping by. Thank you, Katie.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll give you a hug.